In April 2006, the peaceful town of Medicine Hat was shaken by a horrifying tragedy. The Richardson family experienced a gruesome murder with one of their children missing. The shocking part was that no one expected their young, innocent daughter to be involved in this heinous crime. This case is undeniably unusual, involving elements such as the mid-2000s internet, a highly questionable romantic relationship, and even claims of 300-year-old werewolves. Welcome back to another True Crime Inspector video, where we delve into the Richardson family case. If you enjoy true crime and bizarre cases like this, please consider subscribing to our channel. Now, let's dive right into this chilling story. So grab a drink, fasten your seatbelt, and prepare for a deep exploration into the Richardson family massacre. Our story unfolds in the quaint city of Medicine Hat, nestled 200 miles, or approximately 300 kilometers, southeast of Calgary, Canada. Known as the sunniest city in Canada, Medicine Hat is a clean, prosperous community with all the charm you'd expect from a Canadian town. And in true Canadian fashion, the first landmark I stumbled upon while researching this city was the local Tim Hortons. Medicine Hat is a thriving town popular among young families, renowned for its outdoor-oriented lifestyle and blessed with abundant natural beauty and recreational activities. Among the fortunate families enjoying the town's offerings were the Richardsons, parents Deborah and Mark Richardson, along with their two children, 8-year-old Tyler and 12-year-old Jasmine. The Richardsons were the epitome of an ordinary family. Deborah and Mark's love story began in 1990 when they crossed paths at their local gym in Ontario. Both attended weekly classes at the gym, including one tailored for those dealing with substance abuse issues. It was a pivotal time for Mark, who had previously struggled with addiction but was now on the path to recovery. By the time they met, both Deborah and Mark were sober, focusing on building their lives together. After relocating and purchasing their first home in Medicine Hat, they welcomed their first child, Jasmine. 4 years later, their son Tyler came into the world. The small family enjoyed a tranquil life in their modest Medicine Hat residence. Both children were in good health and showered with love, excelling in their studies. At just 11 years old, Jasmine was already recognized as an honor student. She was a young, attractive girl with an infectious smile, a trait many noted she had inherited from her mother. However, this is where our story takes a dark turn. As is often the case with many teenagers, Jasmine's personality began to undergo changes as she entered her teenage years. While she commenced her second decade as a cheerful, church-going honor student, things quickly evolved after she discovered the world of the internet. Initially, she maintained her bubbly and friendly persona in real life, but online, she adopted a completely different identity than what she presented to her family and friends. Jasmine had personal accounts on several social networking sites, including MySpace, which was popular at the time. Her MySpace profile, once appearing tame and girly, gradually transformed into a darker and more gothic version. While there's nothing inherently wrong with that, it's essential context for today's video. Additionally, she created an account on the now-defunct social networking site vampirefreaks.com, a platform designed for connecting with individuals in the goth, punk, and emo subcultures, an interest that Jasmine had taken a liking to. She used usernames like XKillerKittyX, Runaway Devil, and XMayhemX, and for those who remember the early days of the internet, the excessive use of X in usernames was characteristic of that era. Her profiles were adorned with photos featuring thick eyeliner, alternative clothing, and poses with fake guns. Her listed interests on social media aligned with her newfound identity, including piercings, tattoos, Tim Burton, toy guns, and loud music, all typical of an emerging emo teen in the mid-2000s. The Nightmare Before Christmas was all the rage, and Hot Topic had yet to be overrun by Funko Pops. Jasmine spent a significant amount of time online engaging with other alternative teenagers. In addition to her virtual life, she also attended various alternative shows in the local area. These events generally attracted young people, so 12-year-old Jasmine typically attended with some of her friends. Unfortunately, this is where the story takes another disturbing turn. It was at one of these punk rock shows that Jasmine crossed paths with a 23-year-old individual who went by the name Jeremy Stunky. Jeremy could be described as a deadbeat by all accounts. After enduring severe bullying, he made the difficult decision to drop out of high school. Rather than seeking employment, he chose to reside in a trailer park with his mother, who battled alcohol abuse and struggled to maintain stable relationships. Consequently, a revolving door of men entered and exited Jeremy's family home, and unfortunately, many of them subjected him to physical abuse. By 2006, at the age of 23, Jeremy remained unemployed and dedicated most of his time to online interactions with girls, many of whom were significantly younger than him. Jeremy considered himself somewhat of an outcast, a self-perception that was reinforced by his friends due to the bizarre facts he shared about himself. He openly expressed his affinity for the taste of blood and claimed to consume it regularly. To add to the eccentricity, Jeremy was often seen wearing a vial of blood around his neck, just in case he experienced a so-called craving. Stranger yet, Jeremy asserted that he was a 300-year-old werewolf, a claim met with skepticism in Medicine Hat, a place where countless full moons had passed without any reported casualties. It was in this context that Jasmine encountered Jeremy at a local punk rock show, where she falsely stated her age as 15, when, in reality, she was only 12 years old at the time. Regardless of the circumstances, it is important to note that 15 years old is still considered a minor. However, Jeremy seemed unfazed by this fact. He had a preference for younger girls, as he found them easier to manipulate and control. They communicated through various social media platforms, such as Vampire Freaks and the Canadian networking site Nexopia. Interestingly, Jasmine's age on these platforms was falsely listed as older than she actually was. As time went on, their conversations became more frequent and intense. It became evident that Jeremy's lifestyle and interests were influencing the young 12-year-old Jasmine. Their messages took a disturbingly romantic turn, and it seemed that Runaway Devil and Soul Eater had become a couple in all practical senses. I'll refrain from delving into explicit details, but a snippet from one of his messages read, "God, I can't stop thinking about not seeing or talking to you. I yearn to hear your gentle voice and to be in your arms, wherever that may be. I don't care. There is not anything that could ever replace the way you make me feel. I miss you. I love you. And I wish that we could just go somewhere." He even added hugs and kisses, along with a rawful emoticon, concluding with, "Talk to you later, Cuddle Bunny." In addition to these disturbing and inappropriate messages, Jeremy's influence led Jasmine to adopt a darker persona, ultimately leading to her transition into a more gothic lifestyle. Matters escalated to the point where Jeremy symbolically declared his love by gifting his young girlfriend a vial of his own blood, mirroring the one he wore around his neck. This ill-fated relationship soon spilled over into real life, raising serious concerns for Jasmine's parents, who were understandably terrified for their daughter. Upon discovering Jeremy's existence, they took swift action by grounding their daughter and confiscating her computer. However, after a period of good behavior, Jasmine's computer was returned to her. And did she sever ties with Jeremy? Unsurprisingly, no. The two reconnected, this time being more discreet about concealing their relationship. Jeremy couldn't ignore the restrictions imposed by Jasmine's parents, and his anger at their interference found expression through dark, edgy poetry. He penned the following lines. "My lover's rents are totally unfair. They don't know what is going on and just assume. She is slowly going insane. She continues to think that I came. Their throats I want to slit. They shall pay for their insolence. Finally, there will be silence. their blood shall be payment. The idea that they could not be together as long as Jasmine's parents were in the picture resonated deeply with both Jasmine and Jeremy. They were just about finding a way to eliminate them and live together indefinitely. One of Jasmine's messages captured this sentiment. In her message, she said, "I miss you more than killing people. Can we get together and kill people? Rawr, I hate them. So I have this plan. It begins with me killing them and ends with me living with you." While teenagers often make lighthearted remarks about disliking their parents or wishing they could disappear, these words were uttered in the presence of an obsessive predator who was determined to maintain his grip on Jasmine's affections. Whether or not Jasmine truly meant the words she was typing remains unknown. However, in Jeremy's mind, the notion of committing heinous acts for the sake of his self-proclaimed lover carried a morbidly romantic allure. Meanwhile, the Richardson family continued with their daily lives, blissfully unaware that their demise was being meticulously planned. Mark and Deborah were relieved that their daughter seemed to be on a positive path, and their son Tyler was happily attending school, enjoying the innocence of an 8-year-old's life. Little did they know that behind a computer screen, a sinister plot was unfolding, one that would involve one of their own flesh and blood. On the chilly spring day of April 23, 2006, the suburban neighborhood of Southview embraced a peaceful Sunday. Families carried out their usual routines, and children played outdoors. Among them was a young boy who had come to visit his friend Tyler. However, when he knocked on the door of house number 304, there was only silence. This silence struck the boy as unusual. The Richardsons were always home on Sundays, and their car was parked in the driveway. Curiosity got the best of him, and he left the porch to peer through a window on the left, which provided a view into the home's basement. There, in the dimly lit room, he saw the silhouette of a person lying motionless on the floor. Deeply concerned, the boy rushed back home to inform his mother of what he had witnessed. She promptly called the police to conduct a wellness check on the Richardson family. When the authorities arrived at the residence, it became evident that something horrific had occurred. The front door was unlocked, and an eerie silence enveloped the house. Police officers initiated their search in the basement, where they made a grim discovery. There, they found Deborah and Mark Richardson, lifeless and lying on the ground in a pool of their own blood. Deborah had tragically suffered 12 stab wounds to her chest, while Mark had endured 24 lacerations and puncture wounds to his chest and back. The harrowing revelations did not end there. Upon entering Tyler's bedroom, they discovered his lifeless body in his bed, surrounded by blood-soaked sheets and the stuffed animals he usually slept with. The young boy had been subjected to 5 stab wounds, and his throat had been cruelly cut. As the police meticulously examined the crime scene, they couldn't help but take notice of the family pictures scattered throughout the house, portraying a family of 4. This raised a troubling question. Where was their daughter, Jasmine? The initial assumption was that these murders were the result of a home invasion, possibly involving the abduction of Jasmine by the same individuals who had brutally taken her family's lives. As a result, an Amber Alert was promptly issued for the missing 12-year-old, and the authorities initiated their preliminary efforts to locate her. Their investigation began by reaching out to Jasmine's friends and her school. Access was granted to Jasmine's school records, including her locker, where they made a startling discovery. Among her school supplies and books, they found a drawing, a stick figure comic depicting a family going for a walk. In this disturbing illustration, one family member retreated to Jeremy's truck, where they retrieved gasoline and proceeded to pour it onto the other 3 family members. Subsequently, they set the 3 ablaze, prolonging their pain and suffering. This discovery prompted authorities to view Jasmine's disappearance with deep suspicion, particularly given Jeremy's involvement, and they were determined to uncover the truth about him. It didn't take long for multiple leads to emerge. After questioning several of Jasmine's friends, authorities were able to identify the man in question as Jeremy Allen Steinke, Her friends described how he showered her with attention and would go to great lengths to keep her focused on him. What made matters even more disconcerting was that some of these friends disclosed that Jasmine had frequently discussed the idea of killing her own parents. Acting on these tips and armed with a trail of digital evidence, including messages, emails, and chat logs, the investigating officers began to piece together a chilling motive. The shocking news of the suspected killer couple quickly made headlines far and wide, sending shockwaves through the small community of Medicine Hat, leaving residents in a state of disbelief and revulsion. Little did Jeremy and Jasmine know that this widespread publicity would ultimately lead to their undoing. Shortly thereafter, they were spotted at a gas station located less than 100 miles away from their hometown. Incredibly, they had spent the past 24 hours casually socializing with friends, all of whom were entirely unaware of the heinous acts they had committed. Or perhaps it's more accurate to say that their friends did not take their claims seriously. To the utter bewilderment of those who were with them, Jeremy and Jasmine were openly joking about the recent murder of Jasmine's family, even sharing precise details of how they had carried out the gruesome deeds. At first, everyone believed it was some sort of sick, macabre joke. However, as soon as they saw the newspaper headlines, their friends immediately reported them to the police. Eventually, Jeremy's truck was successfully located in a field where the pair had spent the previous night together. Law enforcement officers, having surrounded the truck, wasted no time in arresting both Jasmine Richardson and Jeremy Steinke on suspicion of committing triple murder. To the astonishment of many, the pair appeared unfazed by the news, displaying nothing but annoyance at the situation they found themselves in. With the couple now in custody, authorities could begin their thorough interrogations, hoping to unearth the truth about the events of April 22nd. It didn't take long for them to start talking. Jeremy admitted that Jasmine had implored him to assist in the elimination of her parents by any means necessary, and since he claimed he would do anything to please her, he agreed to her request. Simultaneously, Jasmine promptly distanced herself from the crimes by painting Jeremy as the sole perpetrator. Jasmine asserted that her discussions about killing her family were purely hypothetical and meant as a joke, with no genuine intention to follow through with such a plan. However, Jeremy's account appeared to be more credible than Jasmine's version of events, especially when supported by a substantial digital trail of evidence showing that both of them had committed to their plan. The burning question on everyone's mind was, what exactly was their sinister scheme? It all commenced on the fateful night of April 22nd. Jasmine covertly allowed Jeremy into the house under the cloak of darkness. She then discreetly retreated upstairs, while Jeremy made his way to the basement. There, as Deborah was occupied with laundry, he confronted her. Armed with a 6-inch folding knife, Jeremy launched a frenzied attack on Jasmine's mother, inflicting multiple stab wounds to her chest. However, this violent confrontation did not go unnoticed. In the midst of the struggle, Mark awoke to the sound of his wife's desperate screams for help. He hurriedly rushed towards the basement, only to be met with the distressing sight of his wife lying on the floor with a masked intruder looming over her. Mark and the intruder engaged in a fierce wrestling match as Mark desperately attempted to wrest the knife away from the assailant. Tragically, Mark's efforts proved futile in the face of the determined attacker. The tragic fight ended with Mark receiving multiple stab wounds to his chest and back. In his fading consciousness, he could only utter one word to Jeremy. "Why?" Jeremy's response was haunting and heart-wrenching. "Because your daughter wanted it that way." Mark succumbed to his injuries shortly after this exchange. Meanwhile, upstairs in her room, Jasmine was preparing to carry out her part of the plan, which involved taking the life of her own younger brother, who was peacefully sleeping in his bedroom. Jeremy's and Jasmine's accounts of what transpired next differ significantly. Jeremy claimed that Jasmine had killed her brother entirely on her own, asserting that he had no involvement. Jasmine, however, testified that after struggling to harm her brother herself, Jeremy encouraged her to take the knife and do it herself. Jasmine eventually admitted to stabbing her brother, but she claimed it was only once, and it was done hesitantly. It was evident, however, that Tyler had sustained a total of 5 stab wounds, including a deep laceration to his throat. After this horrific act, Jeremy left the house, leaving Jasmine alone in the home with her deceased family members. Shortly thereafter, Jasmine hailed a taxi to Jeremy's trailer. During court proceedings, the taxi driver recalled how the young girl he had picked up seemed entirely unfazed. She greeted him cheerfully, showing no signs of distress or grief, as if she were not a child who had just lost her entire family in such a gruesome manner. After reuniting, the couple spent a full day together, showing no regret for their actions. They were seen affectionately together in public and openly discussed their deeds with friends. Their defiant attitude persisted even after their arrest. Interestingly, they were allowed to exchange letters, possibly to help authorities gather more information. During this correspondence, Jeremy proposed to Jasmine, which she accepted, despite previously accusing him of being the sole perpetrator of the crime. This occurred 1 year before their separate trials in June 2007 for the Richardson family murders. Jeremy, being an adult, faced the full extent of legal consequences. His defense presented him as a vulnerable and immature individual with low self-esteem, influenced by a history of abuse from his mother's partners. The defense further contended that Jeremy yearned for affection and sought the pure love of a 12-year-old to compensate for the emotional void from his upbringing. Testimonies from his own friends affirmed his willingness to go to any lengths to maintain her affection. However, it is important to note that being easily influenced and lacking self-confidence cannot justify the heinous act of murdering 3 innocent individuals or engaging in grooming behavior. The court handed down a verdict of 3 life sentences to Jeremy for the grave crimes he committed. A provision for parole was set after 25 years. Given Jasmine's juvenile status during the incident, her identity was protected throughout the trial. She was referred to only by her initials, JR, in all legal documents and proceedings. The investigation revealed an extensive digital trail leading up to the tragic event. Jasmine's involvement was undeniable, and she was found responsible for the loss of her family members. The court noted her apparent lack of remorse and empathy, particularly during her testimony. Her demeanor in court, including inappropriate reactions when recounting the incident, was noted with concern. However, Jasmine's age at the time of the incident significantly influenced her sentencing. Under Canadian law, the maximum sentence for a minor in such cases is 10 years, including provisions for psychiatric treatment, a supportive living environment, and supervised freedom, rather than traditional incarceration. While serving her sentence, Jasmine underwent a transformation. Her rehabilitation was marked by therapy and distancing from negative influences, leading to what appeared to be sincere remorse. The authorities overseeing her rehabilitation were optimistic about her reintegration into society, and Justice Scott Brooker expressed hope for her reformed character. During the sentencing phase, he conveyed a message of hope to Jasmine, stating, "I think your parents and brother would be proud of you. Clearly, you cannot undo the past. You can only live each day with the knowledge that you can control what you do and how you behave each day." For the last 5 years of her sentence, Jasmine attended Mount Royal University in Calgary under a new identity as part of her reintegration into society. She was released in 2016 and has since continued to live amongst the public. In contrast, Jeremy remains incarcerated, a situation that many consider for the best given his predatory behavior even before becoming a murderer. The sentencing in this case often sparks debate, with the adage, "If you're old enough to do the crime, then you're old enough to do the time," frequently invoked. While many believe that Jasmine should have received a lengthier prison term, it is important to recognize that she was just a child who had been manipulated by a disturbed individual. Given her 5-year period of trouble-free behavior following her release, her criminal record has been expunged, leaving no trace of her past crimes. It is likely that she now lives under an entirely different name, free to lead her life without restrictions. Mark and Deborah Richardson were devoted parents who cared deeply for their daughter's well-being. Any parent would have been horrified to learn of Jasmine's situation. They loved and protected their daughter, only wishing to ensure her safety and happiness. Tragically, both of them, along with Jasmine's younger brother Tyler, fell victim to a horrific crime driven by an illegal and disturbing love affair. Jeremy is facing a lifetime behind bars, never to see the light of day again, while Jasmine will have to carry the burden of her guilt for the rest of her life, a punishment in itself. The community of Medicine Hat remains unwilling to welcome her back, and the town still bears the scars of this tragic event. The complexity of Jasmine's sentence prompts mixed feelings. 10 years may seem like a relatively short time given the gravity of her actions. However, it's important to remember that she was only 12 years old and had been groomed by a 23-year-old. Canada's judicial system differs significantly from many others worldwide, focusing on rehabilitation rather than punishment. While some argue that certain individuals are inherently monstrous, Jasmine's age at the time raises questions about whether she can be trusted after her release. This issue is a subject of debate, with arguments both for and against her early release. Thank you for tuning in to today's video. If you found this case intriguing or learned something new, please like and subscribe. Your support makes a difference. Stay tuned for our next video.